Hello everyone, today we're going to build a really cool drone designed not only for shooting video with a standard GoPro, but also capable of carrying larger cameras like the naked Blackmagic Pocket Cinema or Micro 4K. My friends at Mepsking helped me with the components for this build. They sent me this awesome stack and motors from T-Hobby. Just a reminder that you can buy all of this as well as a whole lot more for FPV on the official Mepsking website. Use the promo code NICFPV to get an extra 10% off. You can also still get an M Plus membership, which will let you save over 20% on every order for less than $3 by using this membership in combination with my promo code. All links are in the description. By placing an order through these links, you're also helping me make even more videos, build even more interesting projects, and share them with you. But always look for the best option for you personally. I'm just offering one of them, and I'm definitely not calling on you to buy everything only through my links. And let's get back to the component review. This is the Velux F7 SE stack, built with high quality components and a high margin of safety at a fairly low price. The entire stack is rated for batteries up to 8S with an ESC rated at 70 amps and 75 amps peak, featuring a factory-applied protective coating. This time I'll cover everything with conformal coating and see how it compares to the B7000. This ESC runs on AM32 firmware, which is definitely a plus, and features large solder pads for both power wires and motors. I think that's all you need to know about this ESC, so let's take a look at the flight controller now. F722 processor, 5 UARTs, 2 BECs at 5 and 12 volts. There's no conformal coding here, but what it does have is support for 8 motors and a huge 128 megabyte black box. A questionable design choice is the separate Bluetooth board that sticks out beyond the main board. Bluetooth is good, and I think it's placed here so the antenna can get a better signal without being blocked by other flight controller components, but only time will tell how reliable this is. It seems to me that any small crash or a stray branch or piece of gravel could break this very thin Bluetooth board. The entire stack with a 30.5 by 30.5 mounting and a fairly basic set of wires, but in my case this is more than enough. T-Hobby F80 PRO. 1900 kV motors. These are 2408 sized motors. They look very high quality, and paired with 6045 propellers from Gemfen, they should deliver about 2.5 kilograms of thrust per motor, which should allow for speeds over 180 kilometers per hour, which we'll test today. I'd like to mention these awesome race wires, which were manufactured with the help of jlcpcb. A global manufacturing service delivers one-stop electronic and mechanical manufacturing solutions. You can order PCB manufacturing based on your own drawings from them. They asked me to talk about the advantages of 6-layer boards and the design efficiency compared to 2- and 4-layer boards, specifically regarding high performance, low cost, and record speed. But to be honest, I don't really know much about that. What's truly important to me is that their process is simple and fast. Even for someone like me who doesn't know much about PCBs, you just upload your drawing, set the recommended parameters along with the material, color, and quantity, and send it to production. They do it very quickly and affordably, and they also have quality control. If you need PCB manufacturing, follow the links in the description and the pinned comment. When you click this link, grab a $30 coupon for your first PCB order. Also, a big thank you to Alexi. He's the one who created the design and the final model of the race wires for production. Now, let's move on to the most interesting part. The frame. It was designed by Shamhal, a top FPV pilot. You might know him by his Instagram handle, Shamhal FPV. This frame is already available for purchase. If you'd like to buy one, please contact him. It consists of a 2mm top plate, 6mm arms, they're all the same, a center bar for fixing the arms in place, and this frame reminds me more of a freestyle frame, since the arm layout here is a squashed X, but the propellers aren't visible in the frame after image stabilization. The lower front plate is 3mm thick, and the lower rear plate is 2mm thick. Rubber pads for the battery on the top and bottom plates. The camera mount plates are 2mm thick. 2 250mm battery straps, and a full set of screws and standoffs for assembling this frame. The remaining parts for this build are the GPS M10 Mini, in my case the GM10 Mini from Flywoo, the Matic 12 S Pro BEC, and the Diversity ELRS RP3 from RadioMaster. All the 3D printed parts for mounting our components. There's a basic set consisting of a rear antenna and GPS mount, an O4Pro module, arm protectors, and camera mounts. But since I don't like just attaching things with zip ties or double-sided tape, I modified some parts and made others from scratch. Just so you understand, this is the volume of test samples I made to get everything fitted as precisely as possible and exactly the way I need it. This is actually my first experience with 3D modeling and printing. It took quite a long time and was confusing. Give it a like for the effort. I'll make all the 3D models available for free. You'll find the links right there in the description and in the pinned comment. Let's clean up a little and finally start assembling the frame. First, we need M3 screws, 13 and 16mm. The central screw are 13mm, and for now we don't need to insert them yet. Don't make the same mistakes I did. The ones along the edges are for 16mm screws. Insert them, flip the plate over, place the center cross piece and attach the arms. Next, attach the back plate to the same screws and secure it with 20mm stands. And only now do we tighten the center screws. Watch carefully to ensure the arms fit snugly against the plates and there are no gaps anywhere. We need 30.5 by 30.5 mounting holes, so I'll just remove the 20 by 20 ones. You don't have to remove them. There's practically no chance the stack will touch them, but I'm going to do it anyway. Now let's screw in the 20mm screws and try the stack on. The stack comes with yellow damping balls, but since my build concept is all or almost all black, I'll use black damping balls. For the ESC, I'll use 6.6mm damping balls and 8mm ones for the flight controller. I'll do another unnecessary step and screw in the motors. I'll be using 50 volts 1000 microfarads polymer capacitors. That's a large margin, but since this drone is designed to fly with expensive cameras, having that extra margin of reliability in all components won't hurt. These capacitors will be located at the front, just like the BEC and the stack's power supply. I'll also replace the included power cable, since it's red, and I'll be using a gray one. It could be black, but I'm afraid I'll mix everything up when I'm soldering. I'm using AWG18 wire for the capacitors and BAC. And all the front-end components will be mounted in a bracket like this. Let's do some soldering. You already know the drill here. Plenty of flux, good solder, and a soldering iron, and everything will turn out great. The power wires and motors are ready. Now they can be unscrewed, though, as I said, screwing them in wasn't necessary. Let's prepare the capacitors and the BEC. As I mentioned, all the wires here are AWG18. The gray ones are power, the black ones are ground. The main thing is not to mix them up. Also, don't forget to connect these contacts to 12 volts. I think this voltage will work for practically everything you can put on this drone. We'll insert all of this into our mount. And the hardest part is soldering everything to the ESC, since there are 3 wires for plus and 3 for minus, and we still need to arrange them quite compactly. We'll make the output from the BEC to the XT30 and put all this aside for now, since we first need to install the O4Pro unit. I've already waterproofed it. See the video linked in the top right corner for instructions on how to do this. And all that's left is to install the antennas. First, we'll insert them into the mount, along with the ELRS antenna. Insert the 20mm struts and temporarily screw them to the frame for now. Route the O4 camera cable along the bottom of the frame and insert our mount with the capacitors and BEC into these slots. Also, don't forget to insert the second ELRS antenna, so it will also run under the ESC. Now connect the O4 antennas and insert the unit itself into its mount. Place the GPS in the mount with the antennas and the ELRS in the unit mount's pocket. Wrap the GPS wires in copper foil for additional shielding against interference. Remove the S-bus connector from the O4 unit since we're using ELRS. Now that all the wires are in place, you can screw the unit into position and install the flight controller. Connect the ESC and O4 unit via the connectors and solder the GPS and ELRS to UART 1 and 3 respectively. And now everything needs to be sealed. Today I'm doing this with conformal coating, but I'm also using B7000 around the connectors and buttons to prevent the coating from getting inside and flooding the contacts. Also, don't forget to cover the barometer before applying the coating. If coating gets inside, it will simply stop working. To tell what I've coated and what I haven't, you can use an UV light. The conformal coating glows, and by the way, B7000 does too. And now you can see how I'm making a mistake by gluing the race wires directly to the frame. This will work, but as you may recall from the video on assembling the basher, I glued the insulation from the bottom there, since the race wires have fairly thin insulation and carbon conducts electricity well, so don't forget to additionally insulate the race wires from the drone's frame. Well, while the incorrectly glued wires are drying, let's coat the other side of the flight controller. And finally, let's solder the motors. The smaller holes in the plate are for 9mm screws and the larger ones are for 11mm screws. I really like these race wires. They also need to be coated on top because the lettering on them is copper and essentially it's open wiring. I'm checking everything again with an UV light, and let me show you the main problem with most conformal coatings. As it dries, it becomes quite hard and brittle. For example, the coating that T-Hobby offers us from the factory already has a crack. It's hard to spot and even harder to show on camera. Only by zooming in several times and turning up the contrast can you see this crack. Of course, I applied an additional coat in this spot, but the problem is that it's impossible to keep track of when these cracks appear and when this protection will stop working. With the B7000, such problems don't arise. This time, I'll fasten the entire stack simply with plastic nuts. I made the XT30 mounting under this cutout in the frame. As for the ELRS antenna mounting point, everything is packed tightly here, and I think I'll redesign it in the future. But I'll remind you that all part models will be open source, with all links in the description. We screw the top plate in place with 6 and 8 mm screws. We measure out the required length of the power wires and solder the XT60 connector. We first put heat shrink tubing on the wires and then insert the male part into the connector itself so that nothing gets damaged by the heat. The final touch is the battery pads. The kit includes pads for both top and bottom battery orientations. We check the contacts with a multimeter and make the first connection through a smoke stopper. Now, Betaflight is online. There aren't any particular nuances in setting up this build, at least for the first tests. I'll just flash the latest firmware. Since our flight controller is flipped, on the Configuration tab, you need to rotate the orientation 270 degrees in yaw and 180 degrees in pitch. On the Ports tab, we'll note where everything is connected. On UART 1, we have the GPS, on the second, we have the O4 unit, and on the third, we have the ELRS. Set the maximum arming angle to 180, skip the power and battery, and failsafe tabs for now. Set the ELRS to 500 Hz. Set dynamic damping to 0 and disable the first gyro low-pass filter. Connect the controller and set the switches to your comfort. By the way, this is my new controller, the TL8 from RadioMaster. It's quite good, but has its quirks. If you'd like a separate review on which controller to choose, let me know in the comments. On the GPS tab, set Use Galileo and set home point once. Configure the motor orientation and rotation, and that's it. If you want more details on the initial setup in Betaflight, check out these videos. The dry weight of this drone is 528 grams, which is pretty light for a 6-inch drone. I probably won't fly with these batteries, but with a 1050 mAh battery, it weighs 712 grams. With a 1200 mAh battery, 735 grams. With a 1400 mAh battery, 753 grams. And then we'll move on to batteries that are more suitable for this drone. With a 1600 mAh battery, 764 grams, and with a 2200 mAh battery, 837 grams. Let's add the action camera mount and the action camera itself, a GoPro 11 in this case, but all modern action cameras weigh about the same, except for the new GoPro, which is of course a bit of a nightmare in terms of weight. With the action camera and the 2200 mAh battery, the weight is already 975 grams, almost a kilogram. Not bad. Let's see how it flies. And now let's move on to the most interesting feature of this drone, the camera mounting options. First, the standard setup, front and top, and also from the bottom. And with this simple movement, we can mount the camera at the rear bottom. But that's not all. There's also this kit for serious cameras. It's sold separately and consists of a plate for mounting the battery on the bottom. A plate like this for mounting a naked Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, and a mount like this for attaching a Blackmagic Micro 4K or any other camera with a standard 1/4 inch mount. For both of these mounts, we need to unscrew these 4 screws and attach the mount using 20mm screws through the printed spaces. We'll attach these printed feet to the battery plate. And since I don't have either a naked Blackmagic or a Blackmagic Micro, I'll mount my main camera here. It's a Sony a6700 with a 10mm lens. This setup has very good balance. Let's check how much it all weighs. With a 1600 mAh battery, the weight is 1 kilogram and 441 grams. That sounds substantial, but we'll test how it flies with this camera in the next video. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Today, we'll do the first tests and check the build. Let's get right to it. First flight with a 1600 mAh battery, no extra camera, and using 6x3.5x3 propellers from HQ props. And of course, the drone feels so light. The top speed with these props is 159 km per hour. Maybe I could have squeezed out a bit more, but unfortunately, I don't have enough space in this park to fly at full throttle. It feels great in flight, even on the standard settings. To jump ahead a bit, I'll say that I kept those very same standard settings, since I tried different presets and didn't like how it flew. I still haven't figured out how to tune it, so if anyone wants to help me with the setup, feel free to reach out, either in the comments or on my Instagram. I'd appreciate your help. And of course, I ended up on the list of people who've had trouble stabilizing the new O4Pro batches. Plus, this frame only has a hard camera mount. But this guy found a really effective solution to the problem. At least it worked for me. I forgot to measure the hover throttle on these propellers, but it's around 22%. Now let's move on to the next propeller size, the 6045 from Gemfon. Noise levels are about the same at low and medium throttle, but noticeably louder at full throttle. Prop wash is slightly more noticeable. Hover throttle is now just under 20% and top speed has increased to 172 kilometers per hour. And at the moment, these are the best props for this build in my opinion. Of course, I haven't flown any serious freestyle here and haven't even tried. First, this is a fresh build and I'm not used to it yet, and second, even though you can fly freestyle on this frame and the design allows for it, there's one significant drawback that could shorten this frame's lifespan. The rear part is too long. This was done for convenient component placement and the ability to mount action cameras on the bottom rear. But in freestyle, with all the crashes, this rear section won't survive. However, this drone handles minor crashes well. See for yourself. Now let's fly with the most aggressive propellers available today, the Azure Power 6.1 inch with a 4.5 pitch. Hover throttle here is already under 18% and the top speed is 181 kilometers per hour. Wild numbers, to be honest. I didn't expect such performance. But here, the prop wash is very noticeable, and the behavior is quite twitchy, so flying wasn't comfortable. Perhaps with a full load, a large camera and a weight of 1.5 kilograms, these props would work perfectly. But for now, I'll go back to the previous setup and let's try flying with the full Action 6 and a 2200 mAh battery. And by the way, there's already a review of the A6 on my channel. You can check it out, especially if you're interested in camera settings for video recording and how I color grade the footage. And you know what I'll say? I enjoyed flying the most with this setup. The throttle response became smooth, the twitching disappeared, and prop wash is practically gone too. The only downside is the increased inertia, though I wouldn't call it a downside for a 6-inch drone, you just need to know how to work with it. The hover throttle at idle hasn't changed much, it's still just under 20%, and the top speed is 167 kilometers per hour. The cruising speed is around 80 to 85 kilometers per hour at 30% throttle. And what surprised me the most is the flight time of over 7 minutes, even though I flew freestyle and tested the top speed several times, all while carrying a full action camera, a 2200 mAh battery, and a setup weighing nearly a kilo. In my opinion, the drone turned out great and is very versatile. Thanks to everyone who helped me build this drone. Thanks to Shemhal for the awesome frame. Thanks to Mepsking for the parts. Check out their website and buy everything you need for our favorite hobby at great prices. Thanks to jlcpcb. If you need anything PCB related, reach out to them. And of course, thank you to my beloved followers. Without you, none of my videos would exist. Thank you for watching, leaving comments, and sharing my videos. And this time, please leave your comments about this build. Did you like it? What did I do wrong? Or on the contrary, was everything done right and looked great? Next time we'll test this drone with a larger camera and try to unlock its full potential. And once again, thank you all for watching and see you soon.